Hello everyone, back to today's second video, doing me Gaz Rabbit's Sunday roundup for today's second video. As always on a Sunday, we'll get your eclectic mix of this and that together. We're going to start off looking at the snow, but we've got falling across many parts of the country right now, and also I'll have a look at things like the Arctic Oscillation, North Atlantic Oscillation, solar activity, sea surface temperature anomalies, and of course the weather for the next week to 10 days as well. But as I say, we're going to start off by having a look at the situation with the snow, because there is currently quite a bit of snow falling across the country, so that's where we'll begin today's Sunday roundup. Just to say that we've released some spring analogues. You can find that video here on the homepage. Just scroll down the page a little bit, and it's above the snow desk. Later on today, that video will be placed on the spring updates and forecast page, and there'll be a written report that goes with it as well. We're looking at springs through the solar cycles for the first analogues update. There will be more analogues updates coming up for the spring in the next few weeks, and of course we'll have two more seasonal roundups for the spring as well before the Gaz Rabbit's Spring 2018 forecast is released on Sunday the 25th of February. So next month we'll be releasing that spring forecast. Right, let's get on with it then. We're going to begin by having a look at the situation with the snow. So this is the latest radar picture from, the latest radar image from the weatheroutlook.com. And you can see it's still mainly dry, actually, across much of Scotland and northeastern England. But the rest of the country has this big swathe of precipitation. There's some very bright colours in there, indicating some heavy outbreaks of both rain and snow. If I show you the precipitation type, you can see we've got a big swathe of sleet and snow here from sort of northwest England down through the Midlands, and even going down into the southeast as well. Now, where you've got the pink area, that's where the radar is seeing snow. Where you've got green, that's where the radar is saying it's sleeting. I think particularly in this area just here, most of that sleet that is showing up on the radar picture is actually snow. This stuff down here in the southwest, that probably is sleet. If we have a look at the dew points overlay then, you can see that it's generally from sort of the Midlands eastwards that those dew points are at or below freezing. Remember, when the dew point is at or below freezing, it will always snow. When the dew point is above freezing, it will always rain. So this area down here where it's suggesting sleet, we've actually got the dew point at around 5 degrees down there. So that is primarily going to be rain, I would have thought, away from elevation. But you see, it's a real mix. So in the west, it's mostly rain. In the central and eastern parts of the country, it's mostly snow, and quite heavy snow down. Quite a widespread area of snow also. So which models have done the best? Remember we did Snow Watch on Friday evening, and it all looked very, very much on a knife edge, with some of the models suggesting mainly a non-event, mostly rain, and other models suggesting the chance of quite a lot of snow. This is Euro 4. This is the latest forecast from Euro 4. And this is a UK Met Office product, actually. This is at website Weather Online. This is the precipitation type forecast for midday. And you can see that generally it's going for rain, little bits of snow through parts of Wales, a few splodges through the Midlands, and a little bit across western Scotland. But overall, generally, the model was going for snow, for rain across most parts of the country at midday. And if we just switch that over to the forecast for, so let's have a look at that one, just look at the forecast for this evening. And it really has the snow mostly in the north, never really suggesting anything down in the south. We know from the radar picture, the radar image there, that we have got quite a widespread area of snow, even down at the moment in southern, southeastern parts of the country. Now, conversely, this is what the high-resolution Meteo France model, Lepage, was forecasting for the precipitation type at midday. And that was seeing this quite widespread area of snow across England. So I think that's done quite a lot better, actually, than Euro 4, definitely. And also, Lepage has done better than the GFS as well. well. It sees that snow continuing up to 1 o'clock and even up to 2, 3 o'clock before it does start to clear away and turn back to rain. These milder dew points that we've already seen in the west, where we've got this milder air, they are going to push eastwards. It's going to take a while to do it, but through the day, those milder temperatures will be moving eastwards, and so that's the reason that after the snow, eventually we see most of it going back to rain and then clear away. And then a rapid thaw of flying snow will take place. Also, the Icon model has done quite well. This is DWD Icon. Again, this is the precipitation type forecast for midday. Broadly right, maybe even a little bit better than Arpege, because this does see the snow risk coming down right way into the far southeast. The Arpege model doesn't quite get the snow risk down that far, but it does have that quite broad area of snow there across much of England and also going up into southwestern parts of Scotland too. Continues up to the middle of the afternoon and then goes to rain later in the afternoon and clears away. So if you've got the snow at the moment, it's probably going to carry on for another hour or two. There will be a covering of snow in some places, but expect it to go increasingly to sleet and then rain through the afternoon. And then a thaw of the lying snow will take place later this afternoon and into this evening. And we've got quite a lot of snow actually lying across Scotland. Been a very snowy few days up there. So with a rapid thaw of snow over the next few days, that could pose its own problems with the risk of possibly some localised flooding as well. But a really interesting day today if you like this sort of transitional type weather with proper snow, leading edge snow, and then rain, and then a big increase in temperatures as well. We're going to see a temperature contrast day, something like freezing, no better than freezing the northeastern parts of Scotland and northeast England, to around 13, maybe 14 degrees down across Cornwall. So a huge contrast in temperature. And the other thing to watch out for today is that when that snow transitions back to rain, particularly for the north, where it's very, very cold on the surface, that might produce freezing rain and maybe even some sheet ice. So that's something else to be aware of in this kind of situation, especially when it's been very cold for a long time, such as it has across Scotland. There is a potential for some freezing rain later on today up in the north. That'll be more late this afternoon and this evening. But that's a very interesting day for weather watchers. Hope you are enjoying it. Right, have a look at solar activity next thing. You had a little sneak peek of this in with the spring analogues, but this is the solar disk on our side of the disk today from solarham.net, and essentially solar activity is at very low levels. You have got one area of sunspot just there. But other than that, solar activity is today at very low levels, and it is expected to stay at very low levels for the next 3 days at least. This is the GasWeather Sunday Roundup Solar Activity Tracker, just sent through yesterday by a good friend, James Ackroyd. Big thanks to James for updating this and sending it through. So again, we remain at very low levels of solar activity now. You can see that from the way the thick green and thick red lines are sort of flatlining down here at a very, very low level of solar activity. Some days we are seeing sunspots, so that day, for example, and these days just here, we do get 1 or 2 sunspots appearing, but other days we are completely spotless, and we're sort of trading days at the moment that are spotless with no sunspots at all, and days that do have a very small number of sunspots. So we aren't yet at solar minimum, because when we go into solar minimum, we'll have several days, weeks, possibly months with no sunspots at all. We'll definitely know when we've arrived at true solar minimum. We aren't there yet, but we are at a very, very minimal level of solar activity. By the way, we'll have our first Solar Sunday of 2018 on the 11th of February. We've got that penciled into the diary already. 11th of February for the first solar Sunday, and you'll be seeing the solar tracker throughout the Sunday roundups that we're going to do in the next few weeks and months, of course. Right, sea surface temperature anomaly is next. So this was how the oceans were looking when we did last week's Sunday roundup. If I show you the latest, that's it. So very little change in either Pacific or the Atlantic Ocean. Let's deal with ENSO first of all. So ENSO is this area just here from the equatorial, through the equatorial Pacific, from Peru over to Indonesia. This blue area is a weak La Nina event that has been taking place through this winter and is continuing to take place. Over the past week, we've possibly seen a slight reduction in the anomalies, maybe not quite as deep with the blue. It was a fairly weak event anyway, but we have perhaps seen just a slight ease off in this landing event over the past week. Nevertheless, there are still some deepish blue colours. We are still in a cold event in a landing through the equatorial Pacific Ocean. You would expect this to ease off over the next few weeks and months, because ENSO also always reaches its peak around Christmas, be it El Nino or La Nina. And then through the early part of the following year, it will tend to back off. So by spring, we should be back in ENSO neutral condition, and then we'll see as we go into summer where we go next. There will be a new ENSO update. The first ENSO update of 2018 will be coming up on Saturday, this coming Saturday. So if you're interested in everything sort of El Nino, La Nina, and ENSO based, that will be an update for you coming up on Saturday evening, this coming Saturday. In terms of the North Pacific, very little change up there. Some areas are a little bit cooler now, other areas are a bit warmer, no real change going on there. The North Atlantic remains really quite warm through most of it, as does that area up there around the Norwegian Sea. So in terms of the oceans, there has been very little change over the past week. Let's have a look at what's happening in the stratosphere. So temperatures are lifting up at 30 HPA over the North Pole. So the grey line here tells us where the trend should be through the year in terms of stratospheric temperatures, which is kind of like the top level of the atmosphere in the North Pole, at 30 HPA. That's the trend, is the grey line, and the black line tells us where we've been with stratospheric temperatures through this year. So start off in September, dates on the bottom of the chart, of course. Start off in September with stratospheric temperatures near normal. Went very cold as we went through the last stages of December and into January. Really cold temperatures at 30 HPA. Now those temperatures are starting to lift up. We've actually gone, let's get rid of all of that, we've actually gone a little bit above the grey line now. We've actually gone a little bit above the seasonal average right now in terms of the temperature at 30 HPA. So clearly quite a big lift up in the temperature has occurred, albeit not a sudden stratospheric warming, but certainly we've lost those very cold temperatures at 30 HPA now. In terms of a bit higher up at 10 HPA, the temperature is also lifting up. So at 10 HPA, which is right at the very top level of the stratosphere, or almost so, we find that we are back to trend now after being really quite cold through late December and early January as well. Let's have a look at the forecast temperatures for the stratosphere from the GFS blog, this website, meteoshield.fr. By the way, you can find the link to all the websites featured in the videos on the links page. If you would like to look up any of this stuff for yourself, you can do so from Galsworthy's links page. So this is how temperatures are right now, actually, starting on the 21st of December at 10 HPA. The blue colours here, they are those cold temperatures that we've got in the stratosphere, which are actually around average now. We know that from the chart we're just looking at. These blue colours are the cold temperatures in the stratosphere at 10 HPA. We're looking to infiltrate brighter colours in. So the brighter the colour, the higher the temperature. If we get oranges and reds infiltrating into the North Pole, then we're having a sudden stratospheric warming. A few weeks ago, a couple of weeks ago, we was forecasting to get a sudden stratospheric warming around now, actually, around the 23rd, 24th of January. You see, not really much happening in the coming week in terms of the temperature at 10 HPA. A little bit of warming occurring across Europe. That was being forecast by the GFS model to become a sudden stratospheric warming through the final week of January, but not much sign of that now. We go up to the end of January, and we do find that the temperature is lifting up here by 29th of January across Siberia, becoming quite warm, actually, terms of the temperature in the stratosphere across Siberia. Let's see what the GFS makes of that. We'll run into its extended range. It increases that temperature. So we are almost reaching southern stratospheric warming levels there by the last day of January. A little bit of red is turning up. Then that sort of backs off a little bit, but it does push into the pole. This is quite a big increase in the temperature over pole. It's not a sudden stratospheric warming, but it is going for quite a big increase in the temperature at 10 HPA over North Pole through the first days of February. Notice these blue colours are being pushed down towards Greenland and the Atlantic and Europe as those green and yellow colours infiltrating. Now, this isn't a sudden stratospheric warming. Those sort of increase in the temperature on this chart would lift the temperature kind of, well, black line, it would lift up to kind of like that level, which is quite an increase. It will take the black line up to around there, quite an increase, but it's not taken up to this level, and that's the level you need to get to be having a sudden stratospheric warming. Nevertheless, that is quite a warming that the GFS model is seeing there right at the very end of January and into the start of February. This is the E70F model from the University of Berlin. This is at 168 hours. Again, 10 HPA over the North Pole. The black cross there is the actual North Pole of the Northern Hemisphere, so that's the true North Pole. In a week's time, which is 27th of January, still cold with those temperatures. Notice this area of orange over here, almost getting towards red colours. That's the warming over Siberia that the GFS model has at the same point. So they are kind of in agreement for that for around a week's time. What does the ECM make of it by day 10? You'll see it is starting to move that warm area into the pole, albeit at a moderated level. You see the temperature is lifting a bit over the North Pole. That's where the black cross is, of course. So again, going to that sort of level with those temperatures over the North Pole. If we could run on another day or two, it's possible temperatures would increase a bit more over the pole, maybe going up to that sort of level, which on this chart would take us again to around here. So maybe going a little bit higher, actually, than the GFS model is indicating. Certainly temperatures are on the up in the stratosphere over the final week or so of January and the start of February. Whether they reach sudden stratospheric warming levels, that's a bit of a uncertain quandary. There's no real evidence of that, but certainly the temperatures are now lifting up and will probably continue to do so through into the final month of the winter. Arctic oscillation observed and forecast chart next. The black line here tells us where we've been with the Arctic oscillation. Red lines at the end where the GFS models are forecasting the Arctic oscillation to go. So been very up and down with the Arctic oscillation through winter. This is the 1st of December just here. Generally, I think we have been on the negative side with the Arctic oscillation, although at the moment we are around there. So we are sort of neutral to slightly negative. Went positive with the AO around the middle of January. That's declined again just recently. GFS ensembles are actually forecasting possibility that the Arctic oscillation could go very negative as we go to the very end of January and into the start of February. Remember, this is just an index that's reflecting a state of the atmosphere over North Pole. It's not driving anything. Just tells you what the atmosphere is doing. When you've got a negative AO, you'll tend to have high pressure over pole blocking, and that tends to be the route getting cold air out of pole down to mid latitudes. The unusual thing about this winter is that, as you can see there, generally the AO has been in negative territory, which tells us we have had a lot of high pressure over pole this winter. But certainly from sort of mid-December onwards into right now, we've had a very cold stratosphere. So that's very unusual to do that, to have negativity of the AO like we've had this winter quite consistently. So with such a cold stratosphere over the North Pole. So clearly the stratosphere and the troposphere this winter haven't been in sync as they normally are. I'm not quite sure what the reason for that would be. No doubt research will be ongoing, but it is one of the unusual factors about the winter of 2017-18 that we've seen this divergence between the stratosphere, where it's been very cold, and the troposphere, where we've tended to have high pressure and blocking over the pole. At the same time, the North Atlantic Oscillation has been very positive though. So this is the NAO observed and forecast chart. Again, the black line shows where we've been with the NAO, red lines at the end where GFS Ensemble's forecasting the NAO to go. So whilst the Arctic Oscillation has generally been in negative territory through this winter, the North Atlantic Oscillation generally been positive, and we're still positive right now. We're just there with the GFS ensembles and forecasting that will stay positive with the NAO going into the start of February. So that's the reason we've not had a desperately cold winter. We have had a colder winter. We've had a colder winter because generally the Arctic Oscillation has been negative, which tells us that generally we've had quite a lot of high pressure over pole. But we've not had a really cold winter because the North Atlantic has been set up for westerlies. So a lot of fighting has been going on this winter, a lot of swinging backwards and forwards between cold conditions at times and also very mild conditions at times. And we've got a very mild spell coming up in the days ahead, actually, after today's snow, cold weather gets pushed out of the way. And that's been indicative of this winter. A lot of swinging between cold and mild was really what we expected when we did the winter forecast at the beginning of December. We said we probably would have a colder winter, probably would be more snow this winter compared to any winter since 2012-13. And I think that has for most of us verified, although I know those of you down in the south have done very poorly so far for snow, but really from Wales and the Midlands northwards, this has been a snowier winter compared to any winter back to 12-13. It's also been quite a cold winter in the north anyway. In the south, there hasn't been much in the way of cold weather, but we have seen these swings from cold to mild. So I think broadly the themes that we picked up on in the winter forecast have come true. A colder winter, but not by any means, any stretch of the imagination, a classic cold and snowy winter, which is more or less what we said was likely to happen this winter. Of course, we've still got a way to run. We've got the whole of February to go yet, so I haven't better jinx things just yet in terms of the winter forecast. For February, you'll remember that winter forecast did predict possibility that we would swing into a milder regime with quite a lot of rain, so have to see how that plays out. This is the GFS temperature and precipitation ensemble for the next couple of weeks then. So the red line is the upper air temperature average for this time of the year. And we're starting here, this is for London by the way, we're starting here cold, but we're going to be going mild by tomorrow. And then the early part of the coming week does look generally quite mild. Later in the week, into next weekend, it's going to go colder for a time before we lift the temperatures up again by the time we get through towards the following week. And then we get to this early part of February. So this is the 1st of February just here. So this is the first week of February. And you'll notice then there is a lot of scatter. We've got several ensemble members that are up here, really quite mild with the upper air temperatures. But several ensemble members that are down here, really a very cold level. So I assume those members of the GFS ensembles that we're seeing there, but are going cold through this first week of February, those will be the same ensemble members that we see on the Arctic Oscillation chart that are going really quite negative. They'll be the ones that are producing blocking, and so sending the temperature plummeting as we see down here. And there are some really quite cold ensemble members through this early part of February, going down to -10 at 850 HPA. So there is the possibility that early February first week of February could go a lot colder. Again, sort of another seesaw between milder and colder conditions. But obviously, there's also the chance through early February that we might keep things very mild. That's a long way off, and we're going to have to firm up on what's going on there. I might do an Ensembles Watch later on today to go through the GFS ensembles and see how these colder ensemble members are producing those cold temperatures for the early part of February. In the next week, it's going to be mild, though, so temperature anomalies from the 21st to the 29th of January coming out milder than average, as they are for most parts of Europe. It's a little bit colder now, or will be this week, in the far east and southeast. They've had a very mild winter down there so far, but it looks like that's switching a little bit in the week ahead. Precipitation anomalies are coming out generally above average for the British Isles and for France as well. So obviously milder and wetter for this final week of January. This is how the GFS is looking for Thursday then. We're bringing a weather system across the country Wednesday to Thursday. Quite a lot of wet weather. And as that pushes through, that's the drop in temperature coming up at the end of the week as the wind temporarily swings into the north. That will bring risk of night frost back by the end of this coming week. Doesn't last long though. The high pressure starts to topple in from off the Atlantic. That gives us a lot of quiet weather next weekend, I would have thought. And eventually we'll start to pull up these very mild southwesterly winds. So this is a week's time, Sunday 28th of January. Much milder air pushing up from the southwest. Probably very cloud laden as well. So I suspect we'll infiltrate cloud into this high pressure. But also the temperatures will be mild. We go into the final days of January. It looks more or less mild and dry with high pressure to the south. Turning a little bit more unsettled for the north as we run up to day 10. That is day 10, which is the final day of January, and firmly in a west-southwesterly flow, so still mild with high pressure to the south and low pressure to the north. This is the E70 finally, and that brings in the cold and northerly winds as we go through to the end of the week. So a little bit of a cold snap coming up at the end of this week with a risk of some night frost. Into next weekend, a little bit more unsettled with the ECM compared to the GFS. That's bringing rain across many parts of the country, sort of a week's time. Although the high pressure is building up from the southwest. As we go running up towards day 10, this takes us to the final day of January. And again, it's quite a lot more unsettled, this, compared to the GFS. So we have got a bit of a split here about how much influence we get from high pressure from the Azores for the final days of January. That actually looks quite cool, particularly so for the north, and there might even be a little bit of snow in with that. For the south, it just looks rather cool and wet. But clearly the two models aren't in agreement at this point. I'll go back. It's really around this point over the weekend. The models aren't in agreement about how much influence this high pressure from the Azores is going to have. But GFS wants to build this into quite a strong ridge, especially for the south, which will bring quite a lot of dry weather. But the ECM does look rather more unsettled, and it also looks quite a bit colder as well, especially as we go through to day 10. I mean, of course, where things go beyond that through the first week of February, we saw from the GFS ensembles that there's a large split there between the chance of some very cold weather through that first week of February, but also several ensemble members that keep it mild. And we may pick that up this evening with a GFS ensembles watch. Right, that's it for your Sunday roundup today. Hope you found it interesting and informative. And at 27 minutes, that's all for now, and thanks for watching.